Possessive adjectives are exactly what they sound like. They are adjectives that show possession. Before we take a look at possessive adjectives, let's quickly go over the rules in Spanish for using adjectives. Now these are general rules for using adjectives. They are not always followed, and we will be talking about that more here in just a bit. But our two basic general rules for using adjectives in Spanish is that the adjectives must agree in number and gender with the word that they modify. So if it's something singular and masculine that the adjective is modifying, then our adjective has to be singular and masculine. If it's singular and feminine, the adjective has to be singular and feminine, and so forth. Also, we should remember that adjectives are typically placed after the word that they modify in Spanish. In English, they almost always come before the word that they modify. In Spanish, we generally find them after the word that they modify. So those are our general rules for adjectives. Let's talk a little bit now about possessive adjectives, and let's look at what possessive adjectives are in English to make sure that we're all on the same page, because maybe you're thinking, oh, they're adjectives that show possession. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. These are possessive adjectives in English: my, your, his, her, our, and their. And we can see them on our chart with singular possessive adjectives on the left, plural possessive adjectives on the right, and as always, first person on the first row, second person on the second row, and third person on the third row. Of course, these are all familiar to you. Let's look now at possessive adjectives in Spanish. Remember that we don't have a one-to-one correspondence with our chart in Spanish and our chart in English. So I'm going to take the English chart off, put the Spanish chart on, and we'll talk about it. Here's our Spanish chart. Again, singular is on the left, plural is on the right, but remember that we've got some exceptions. For instance, the word for you, the formal you should know, is usted. Even though it's second person, we find it on the third person row. So here with our possessive adjectives, if we're talking about usted, we're going to use our option that's on the third person row. Same thing for the plural, you all, ustedes. We treat it as if it were third person, even though it's really second person. So our possessive adjectives in Spanish are mi, tu, su, nuestro, vuestro, and su. Now I've got vuestro on here. I made it gray instead of black because, as you know by now, vosotros is only used in Spain. You're not going to run across it very often. I've put it there so that you will know what it is if you ever do run across it, but we're not going to talk about it much. Now later on, when I talk about nuestro, everything that I say about nuestro would also be applicable to vuestro. We'll get to that in a minute. But again, here we are, mi, tu, su, nuestro, vuestro, su. Now I just said that generally speaking, adjectives come after the word that they modify. However, with possessive adjectives, that's not the case. So if we wanted to say, for instance, my dog, let's not capitalize it, it's not a sentence, my dog, in Spanish, that would just be mi perro. That's pretty easy. If I wanted to say his dog, it would be su perro, and so forth. Pretty simple so far. We also said that adjectives have to agree in number and in gender. So if we're saying his dogs, in English we don't change anything except make dogs plural. In Spanish we have to make perro plural, perros, but we also have to make sure that our adjective agrees in number. So it would be sus perros. We have also said that adjectives have to agree in gender. However, notice that mi, tu, and su do not end with an O. So we're not going to change those according to the gender of what we're describing. We'll just leave it the same, whether it's mi perro, masculine, or mi manzana, feminine. Doesn't matter if the item that we're describing is masculine or feminine. For mi, tu, and su, we're going to leave those just the way they are. However, with nuestro, and again the same would be the case for vuestro, if the thing that we are describing is feminine, like our example here, casa, then we have to have the feminine form of nuestro. So that becomes nuestra casa. If we were describing something that were plural, we would need the plural form of nuestra. And in this case, since the thing that we are describing is feminine, we also need the feminine form. So remember, we have to agree in number, meaning singular or plural, and if we're using nuestro or vuestro, we also have to agree in gender with what we describe.